Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Guestlist podcast. I'm your host, Steve Guest. For those of you that haven't listened to an episode of the Guestlist podcast before, this podcast was born out of my first book, Top Biller, The Life of a Recruiter, and the successes that came with that. I was getting bombarded with lots of questions, lots of suggestions, scenarios, and I wanted to give value back. And I thought, what better way to offer value than to get far more experienced, more successful people onto a podcast and have conversations that hopefully add far more value to you, the listener, moving forward. The idea behind the podcast is to discuss high performers, top billers, motivational leaders, inspirational mentors, coaches, and managers. And today's guest is no exception to any of that. It's somebody that I've known for a long time. And he's a great individual to have around. Today's guest is a recruitment professional with over 30 years management and leadership experience in the international specialist staffing and recruitment industry, extensive experience in multidiscipline market segments, client and candidate focused and performance driven, repeatedly focused on sales and profit growth in dynamic and changing markets, leads multiple management teams of operating companies of specialist and professional staffing services. Today's guest is Mr. Joost Kreulen. Welcome onto the show.
Thank you very much, Steve. And thank you for inviting me on this podcast.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Now, we've known each other going back, how many years?
Oh,
7 or 8, 9?
10 years, I guess.
Is it 10 years? My word. So we've spent many a conversation. I always remember meeting you at our Manchester offices, part of Fast Track for lunch, and we used to swap book notes and what we were reading at the times.
Absolutely.
What are you reading at the moment? Is there anything that's high up the list?
I'm reading at the moment. I'm reading at the moment a book which is called Entrepreneurial DNA.
Okay.
And it's an interesting book because it's about fast-growing businesses. That are owned by an entrepreneur, and where the risk is that growth of the business and adding more people to the business ultimately can dilute on the DNA of the business owner in the business. Okay. So if you have a small business and you're a business owner, you're around your people all day long. You work as a team and everybody is inspired by your leadership. And once this business grows and gets bigger, and the owner becomes more invisible to the staff, then you see that productivity is becoming under pressure. So the book basically deals about how to maintain, let's say, the founder's DNA in the business while the business is fast growing.
Okay, good stuff. So normally when I interview guests on the podcast, it's because they've been nominated in some shape or form. Now, for you coming onto this show, it was me that nominated you because I know you. Why do you think you would be a good guest on this podcast? Give me a bit of an overview.
Yeah, Steve, maybe it's better for other people to answer that, but but that's a bit of a non-answer to your question. I guess it is because I've had a tenure of over 30 years plus in the staffing and recruitment industry, and in the specialized business on a global level, as you just explained. And my career is spanning basically 3 decades, split in 3 equal parts of 10 years. The first decade I started running a desk in 1987 in a small local staffing agency, and I basically managed or walked the ranks of the career ladder in that business to becoming a managing director. And after 10 years working there, this business was sold to Select Appointments PLC, a listed international specialist staffing and recruitment group, which was founded at the time by Tony Martin. And this basically was a start for me of a more international career. And he assigned me to develop a group of specialist businesses in the Netherlands and in the Nordic region of Europe. Later on, this group, Select Appointments, was sold to Vedior, and I continued my career there on a C-level executive role for the Netherlands, Nordics, and Germany then.
Mm-hmm.
And when Germany was acquired by Randstad, I was on the international, on the global integration board advising the board of Randstad how to integrate the video brands in their group. And after that project, I left, and Tony Martin called me, and I followed him into Empresaria, which basically marks the start of the third decade.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been 30 years of experience, and I'm now currently in a position as a non-executive director in 4 different boards of staffing companies in the Netherlands, of which 2 are international oriented, to share my experience with these boards and with the business owners to help them grow and develop their businesses. And that's been a very satisfying ride so far. And I think this podcast may help some of your listeners to pick up 1 or 2 things from this podcast that may help them in their businesses as well.
100%. I mean, we met when you were chief exec of Empresaria, multiple countries around the world, covering various sectors. I mean, the skill set within there and the task involved is huge.
Yes.
You've met with countless amounts of recruitment agencies, high performing teams, leaders, managers, businesses. What do you feel, in your experience, separates perhaps the average performers to the high performers? What traits do people have that just set them apart from the rest?
Okay. So this is a very interesting question, and I put some thought to it to let's say, to give a comprehensive overview on what I think are the key habits, key ingredients. But first of all, we all know staffing is a brutal dog-eat-dog business, and to be successful in the industry, first thing is you have to go to work hard and get the key things right. There are a few habits that make staffing agencies more successful than others, obviously. And staffing agencies that practice these habits are likely to be more successful than others. Personally, I do not believe success is based on luck. Luck is the dividend of sweat, and the more you sweat, the luckier you get. So hard work is key. And as a model, I've always been a strong believer in specialization in order to deliver added value to both clients and candidates. One needs to have a thorough understanding of the markets and the jobs that clients and candidates are working in. And the key there is not to get distracted by other opportunities, but stay focused on what you're doing. So I refer to this quite often, that it is important to be, let's say, an inch wide and a mile deep, rather than be a jack of all trades. Well, in terms of the habits, from my experience, I can mention a number of them. I think that growth is a guiding principle for a successful staffing company, because if you're a growing business, it gives people chances in their career, and it benefits people that are working in your company, and it's attracting the right people. And at the end of the day, it is a people business. So having the right people in place in your business is a very important key to success. The other thing is, and this is an interesting in nowadays markets, that markets also in Europe are very much candidate driven. The problem is that with staffing, it's a volatile business. Any of our clients could lay off, close the plant, or go out of business at any point. So if you don't embed a sales attitude in your business, you may run out of clients and job orders at some point in time. And yes, it is important to build up a qualitative and strong candidate network. It is crucial, but it is our clients that by the end of the day are paying our bills. So I think that successful staffing agencies are always after the next new account to replace the one that's about to slow down. So candidates may rule, but that is for now. But if there's, I've come across some client dismissive attitudes that, consultants would say, if I can find a candidate, I can get the client. So who cares about, business development? Yeah? Who cares about finding clients? Yeah? So recruiters or consultants, are lacking in, taking time to meet with clients face to face, meet clients through Zoom or Teams meetings, and nurture a client relationships. And if you don't do that, you go blank at some point in time. So sales is very important to continue. Also, of course, clearly that, you need to treat your candidates and internal staff well. If you treat your people, like they are a nuisance, that are not important, or you ignore your candidates, or like you act like you're better than them, then the absolute last thing they'll do is send you to their friends and family. So it is important to have a very strong focus on that as well. And you need to choose your clients wisely. You can roll out the red carpet to our clients all day long, bringing them into companies. But if we're sending them to hellholes, then our reputation will fade fast, and it will hurt candidates for long term. So you need to choose the clients you want to work for, and where you think this is a good place for my candidates to be successful and develop their careers in a good way. If you are, let's say, an international business, or you have multiple offices, I think it's also important to have processes in place that and have your people stick to it company-wide. Whether that's an application process, onboarding, client sign-up, orientations, or any non-client specific processes, it is important to have that in place. Okay, so I talked a little bit about internal staff and treating them well, and I think ultimately leadership is very important. Successful staffing agencies preach, promote, and practice their core values. Leadership should practice what they preach from the top down. An agency that cultivates a culture of honor, integrity, diligence, and paramount customer service throughout all levels of the organization. A company like that is bound to be more successful than those that do not. So do the right thing no matter what, and people will take notice and want to do business with you or want to work with you. Lead by example. As a leader, you are a role model to the people who work in your business. So that is essential, I think, for successful staffing companies.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think when I joined Fast Track 2008, I'd been a senior consultant, and we opened the office. There was myself and a trades consultant and a director who left relatively soon after the office opened. And I remember talking to the MD of Fast Track, Phil, and effectively said, "Lead me to it. We'll see what we can do. We'll grow the business." And it was a recession, UK recession, construction, one of the hardest hit markets. And I think my learning curve as a leader, as a manager, was really fast, because you have to learn to understand your staff. You have to learn to understand what motivates one, doesn't motivate the other. And different ways of dealing with individuals. And that is a path that I feel like I went on, and the learning curve has to be quick, because ultimately you want to attract new talent and keep the current talent happy. And it's not easy, is it? It's not easy to keep everything in line.
No, it's not easy. But as I've always said, it's a people business. The staffing industry is a business for people, through people, and from people. So I have a very strong belief that you can only be successful working in this industry if you have that basic people orientation. And if you have good level of empathy, respect, teamwork, all the things that we hear from time to time. It all counts 3 times for being successful in the staffing industry.
It's so true, isn't it? Just being honest, upfront, working towards common goals, being motivated, ambitious, and all those great things. But you need everyone to be bought into the direction that you're heading, and you're doing it in the right way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. So so we're talking a little bit on leadership right here. So you asked me before that, what do you need to have as for being an inspirational, motivational leader, a top performer? Yeah.
Yeah.
I gave that some thought, and I just think really deep down inside that if you work just for money, you will never make it. But if you love what you're doing, success will be yours. I think that is the basic principle. So, as a general characteristic, I would like to mention that being passionate for what you're doing, having belief in what you're doing, and having a good level of perseverance, yeah, for what you are doing. That are the three most important ingredients, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to be inspirational to others, as a role model or as a leader or to clients or candidates or whatever, you'll need to have a purpose-driven attitude. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So and that's for me is about doing well by doing good. Yeah. And it's not what you do, but why you do it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And acknowledge also the non-financial reason for existence. And to be quite honest, Steve, I came across this not in the first 10, 15 years of my career. I only learned this later on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the most clear example for this is when I started with Empresaria. I started as a regional director in Asia.
Mm-hmm.
In the Asian region, and working in the Asian region in countries like India, for instance, where people are living on annual or on monthly salaries of £200-300 sterling.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see that having a job or not having a job is the difference between having food on the table or not, yeah? And or begging for food. So there it became very clear to me that work, it means so much for people's lives and for people's well-being. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
That the why are we doing this? We're helping people, to clearly we're helping people in their careers, but we're also helping people to make an earning. Decent earnings, yeah, to provide for a living. And the Western world, like the UK and the Netherlands, we've all gone beyond that because there's support and everything basically has housing and has food and has access to education. But that's not granted in some of these Asian countries. Yeah. So I think that purpose-driven attitude. I truly think that we have it already for a long time, but we were not really aware of it, how strong that is. The other thing is, I strongly believe in stewardship. So if you've reached the level that you know that your life is more about others than about yourself, then you have joined the ranks of ultimate stewardship. So good stewards, what they do, they share ideas, they're accessible, and keep their hands dirty. They make things better for everyone. They're coaches and mentors to others, and they're more called to serve and not to rule. So it's about serving leadership rather than ruling leadership.
I love that.
Okay, so that's in a few words describing what I think is important for an inspirational, motivational leader, but also equally goes for a top performer. And I also believe in visibility, which is a challenge now with remote work and hybrid working models, etc. I think leadership should be visible on the floor, should be visible in the organization. Important.
It certainly helps. I think one of the things that were key, I've continued to build and manage and run a desk throughout my recruitment career. I've never stopped, even at the point of, I suppose, the height of Fast Track. I had 19 staff across 2 regions, and I still was one of the higher performers, certainly for perm recruitment. And that was important because I wanted to do. I wanted to tread the path. I wanted to show that actually, if I can do it, if I can outperform you as a consultant, there's no excuse. There's more for you to do to get there. But I wanted to show that I go through the same pains. Somebody doesn't turn up on a Monday. And I think for me, it was a way of me showing that you can be as effective. You can talk on a level in that if you're going through the pains of recruitment, some of the dark days, the rejections, it's valid with me as much as it is with the person that sat opposite. Plus the fact I love it anyway. I mean, that always helps.
No, I agree. It's it's better to show it than to tell it. And then people will follow.
Yeah, definitely. So if you were to look back at your career, if there was perhaps something you wish you had known or maybe even done differently at the start, what would that be? What would that look like?
Yeah, I gave that question some thought, and to be quite honest, Steve, I really can't think of anything which is worthwhile to mention. And I was thinking, why is that? Why can't I come up with anything like that? And I think it is because I started running a desk, back in 1987, and I learned, from running a desk for a number of years. And I walked through all the ranks to become a CEO, ultimately, of a publicly listed global staffing and recruitment group. And during my journey, my 30 years journey, I continuously increased my comfort zone and felt comfortable and self-confident going into my next step on the career ladder. And clearly I came across experiences that I didn't know years before. But I think that if you take your career step by step, and you gradually expand on your comfort zone, then I think you will be more. You have a much more better opportunity to be successful, rather than you, let's say, want to step to a job which is, let's say, 2 levels higher than where you are.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think you've hit the nail on the head in the fact that so many of us create hurdles or barriers to even kind of move to the next level or do something that's slightly uncomfortable. That actually we never achieve our full potential because we're always frightened of the what if or the maybes or the downside or negative of a decision we make. And I think the fact that you've consistently pushed through your comfort zones and you've continued to always look higher, I think is the key point there.
Clear. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so lots of people that listen to this podcast are relatively new to recruitment. They're just getting started. They listen to this as part of their journey. They perhaps even started their first day in their recruitment role. For anyone that's listening to this and they're wanting to be successful in recruitment, become that top performer, what would you recommend as a good starting place?
Well, if I look back at the days that I was a recruiter and starting on that desk back in 1987, there was nobody around me that was telling me about what the business was like, or what my new job was like. There were no training programs. There was hardly any onboarding at the time. So I basically started, picking up the phone and making calls. I was starting to look at, okay, what's the client base look like, and who are these clients? And I just went out and made appointments and set up meetings with these clients. So I think activity, a proactive attitude is very important. It's not about waiting for somebody to bring you the work or bring you the business. You need to go out and do it yourself. And yes, you can make mistakes because you are not experienced, when you start in the business. But if you stay honest and you stay transparent, and you don't oversell, to clients or to candidates, then clients and candidates will respect that, and they will understand that you don't know everything, that a 10-year experienced consultant knows. And actually, they will help you, understand their business or understand their needs, by explaining to you. So you need to listen, So be a good listener, be a learner, be active, and clients and candidates, how funny it may sound, can help you develop you into a good performing consultant. Yeah? They also like nice people. Yeah, and don't pretend to be somebody you're not. Just stay yourself. Yeah, be genuine. Yeah, and all these things, they're all soft skills. They're no hard skills. Yeah, they are very, very important to use and to pay attention to. And then I think that focus and perseverance is important as well, and don't be too hasty. It took me 4 or 5 years, yeah, to become a branch manager. And then from a branch manager, it took me a couple of years to become a regional manager and a managing director. Yeah, it doesn't come overnight. It's hard work. Yeah, it's having focus on what you're doing, and not focus on your next job, or be too impatient for that. Yeah. Ultimately, what is important is during that journey. Yeah, also in the beginning, you need to find out if this is the industry and the work that you like, that you enjoy, that you're passionate about. That if you wake up in the morning and you can't wait to go to work, yeah, and to put in, 50 or sometimes 60 hours a week, just for the benefit of your clients and your candidates. And if that's satisfying, yeah, then automatically you will develop to the levels of a top performer. But there's many people, Stephen, you know this as well, that enter this industry and they're excited about it from the beginning, but after a year they find out it's not for them. Yeah. You don't go to college or university to become a top performer in staffing, in the staffing business. Yeah? No. People go to school to become a doctor or an engineer or an accountant. Yeah. So most of us got into this industry, by coincidence, basically, yeah? Or being told by somebody, hey, that's a nice industry to work in, and you try it out. Yeah. So if it's not for you, that's fine. Find something else. Yeah, and be happy with that.
It's so true. So many wise words in there, and I think quite often as human beings we like to overcomplicate things, and actually just being genuine, being hardworking, being honest, doing things for the right reasons actually gets you quite far ahead of the majority, because
absolutely,
it gets missed.
Absolutely.
Even more so in staffing. I think I entered the industry as a qualified buyer, and I was consistently let down by salespeople as a buyer. And my motivation when I came into being a recruitment consultant was simply to put some of those things right, in that I wanted to be consistent, reliable, do what I said I was going to do, call when I say I was going to, turn up to meetings, do my prep, basic stuff. But actually it set me apart from the rest, because I genuinely cared that I didn't want to disappoint.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with all your comments there. So we've mentioned early on in the conversation the fact that we shared book topics and what we like to surround ourselves with. It could be books, YouTube, seminars, individuals. I mean, what do you feel are the best resources that you've perhaps had around you that have helped you along the way? Who have been the go-to people or resources?
Yeah. Well, the best resources clearly have been the people I've worked with over the past 30 years. If you make sure you surround yourself with professional, talented people, and are able to listen and learn from their insights and experience, then this has been, at least for me, the best resource. Yeah.
Are there any individuals that perhaps stand out, or anybody that, from a literal point of view, that they're almost like those go-to people?
Well, clearly, in the 30 years that I've been in the industry, 20 of these years, almost 2/3 of the time, my career, I was reporting to Tony Martin. And Tony Martin was the chairman of Empresaria Group for the 10 years that I was working there. And if there was anything that I was being challenged by, or I was confused about, and I needed advice, I would go to him. And I would go to his private house, we'll have a lunch. We had a lunch over there, and I would explain, what I was struggling with. And, he would provide me with his wisdom, with his 30 years plus experience being a leader in the global staffing industry. And, without him giving me, let's say, the precise answers in terms of do this or do that, he would share his experience with me, and I would learn from that, and I would implement that, into my actions, and giving me confidence on the decisions that I was taking, in order to deal what I had to deal with.
And it's so important, isn't it? I think we all need that sounding board sometimes.
Sure.
And quite often we already know the answers. It's just we need to hear someone else say it for us to be convinced that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm coming across that now in my roles as non-executive director as well. So I'm, I can give advice to business owners. I can listen to business owners, so they can ask me questions. And I'll share my experience with them. And it's exactly as you say, Steve. It's reflection. I mean, being a business owner, it can be a very lonely role sometimes. Specifically when you have to deal with very important issues, and you can only share that with an external advisor rather than in the company itself. And then it's useful and it's helpful to have somebody around that has the experience, the business experience and the managerial experience to give some guidance.
That's so true. And I say I've sat in a number of meetings where you've presented and you've discussed various things that are happening in and around the world, different cultures, different ways of working across multiple businesses. And just listening to perhaps some of the stories and the journeys that you've been on, because you are widely traveled, aren't you, in terms of the roles that you've done?
Oh yes, immensely.
Yeah.
It was also one of the reasons why back in the day I decided to retire from Empresaria, because after 10 years of intensive travel, 220 nights in hotels on a yearly basis, not being around with the family for years, it kind of gets to you. I mean, it sounds all very exciting for young people, to work in a job where you can see the world, and it is to a certain extent. But after you've been 10 times in Japan, I can tell you this: the only thing you experience is the nuisance of travels and hotels, rather than the excitement of being in a different country.
Yeah, I remember some of your stories. I think it was yourself that told me the story of, hadn't you gone to one of the offices in India, and you couldn't get in the office because there was an elephant sat on the
there's an elephant in front of the entrance, and all the staff was trying to get in. I said, what is this? And said, well, we need to find the guy who wants the elephant, so before we can get in. I mean, nobody thought a big thing of it, and I was just flabbergasted by the whole idea.
Yeah, not your typical day as a recruiter. But I mean, those sorts of life experiences, they're irreplaceable, aren't they?
Absolutely. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. Yeah.
So, I mean, you mentioned briefly there about you're a non-exec director to a number of businesses. You offer advice. What is it, if there's people that are listening to this and they feel that they could or need to come to you for help or support? I mean, how does that work? What do you tend to do for these businesses, and where are you offering advice? Is it on growth, expansion? Is it?
Yes, well, it's basically on growth and international expansion. And it is based on my own personal experience with that. but it's also sharing my international network, with these business owners to help them further, on specific issues that need to be covered, when expanding externally. For instance, I'm now currently in a project where one of the businesses wants to open an office in Germany, because they see on a high level business opportunities. But then, the whole thing in terms of how to be compliant in the German staffing industry, what needs to be done to get a license, who can help me in Germany getting that license, where do I find the right people in Germany, how do I, organize my business development over there, and all these questions that come along are areas and territories that I've covered in my past experience. And I share both my experience as well as my network of people I know in Germany that can be useful in supporting a setup over there. So it first of all, it speeds up the process for the business, and hopefully it prevents them from making the mistakes that I've made myself, when I was doing certain things.
I say, and from knowing you as well, your network is vast, isn't it?
It is pretty vast, and it's also very important that that's the other thing, Steve. A network dries up very easy if you don't put maintenance on it. So I think somebody once said that if you leave a job and you take a sabbatical for 3 or 6 months and you don't call anybody or speak to anybody anymore, then after 3 or 6 months, nobody will call you anymore. So you need to maintain it. So I've maintained that. So I have an active international network of people that I like to work with.
If people are listening to this and they'd like to make contact with you, where's the best route to kind of make contact?
The best route to make contact, clearly, is LinkedIn. So my profile is on LinkedIn, and you can drop me a message and I'll get right back to you, whether it's a query or a request or whatever related to the staffing industry business. I'm happy to answer that.
Well, I mean, personally, I want to extend a huge kind of thanks and gratitude to you. I really enjoyed working with you when we were part of the same group, and the times that we spent where we were talking over lunch, the wisdom and advice you offered me, I'm hugely grateful for. You've reviewed both my books, which I'm always happy to send across because I know you'll enjoy a good read.
Yeah.
And we've kept in touch, and we were talking off air, weren't we? It's probably been maybe 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, Steve. I mean, the whole pandemic and the lockdowns have, let's say, prevented me from traveling to the UK.
Yeah.
But clearly, now it's okay to do that. I'm planning to come over next year.
Okay.
Spend a week in the UK. I certainly will let you know up front.
Oh, please do.
It would be lovely to catch up.
Yeah,
have
please
a coffee
do.
or a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And, share war stories and things about the staffing industry.
Definitely. Well, look, I always ask this final question as part of the podcast episodes. If there was one single piece of advice that you'd leave the listeners with, what would that be?
Okay. Now, currently we live in uncertain times. The coming year, I think, will be very different than where we were at the start of 2022. Currently, we are caught into several crises at the same time. We get the geopolitical crisis, Ukraine, Russia. We've got the energy crisis. We've got a huge inflation crisis, and there's a recession threat that will, most likely materialize in 2023. At the same time, business owners or managing directors of a staffing agency, we need to focus on running our business and stay positive on the opportunities that are still in the market and also will be in the market in 2023. Today, October moving into November, it's the time of the year to start drafting plans and budgets for the next year. And my advice basically would be to build in flexibility in your budgets so that you can adjust your cost base in 2023 when needed. Keep a very close eye on any signs of slowdown, like drop off in job orders, shortening of running time of temps, etc. So you can act promptly when needed. So be prepared. If change is a continuous recurring phenomena in business in general, I would say that this applies 3 times for the staffing industry. So that would be my message for the listeners to prepare on 2023 in that matter.
That's it. And stay positive, stay optimistic.
Absolutely.
Like the typical recruiter, ever the optimist.
Yeah. But also be rational from time to time.
Of course. Joost, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I enjoyed answering your questions, Steve, and sharing my experience and talking with you about the staffing industry. After all these years, I'm still passionate as I ever was.
You can see that. You can hear it.
I'm still full of ideas. And I personally don't believe in full retirement. I think in a career you follow different phases of life. And as me, I'm 60 plus, I'm a different phase right now. I just became grandfather. You've got 2 young sons. I've got a grandson and a granddaughter. So I'm 1 generation away from where you are. But Steve, I'm sure that, in years from now, you will be on my side. And sharing with other people as you already are doing.
Joost,
it was happy to speak to you. Have a good one. And hopefully we'll see each other and catch up in person next year.
We will do.
All right.
Thanks, Joost.
Bye-bye.
Bye.